There comes a point in every man's life when he stares into the mirror and doesn't recognize the reflection looking back. Not because he's transformed, but because he hasn't. The same thoughts, the same fears, the same stories repeating themselves, days blending into weeks, weeks into years, and deep. Inside, nothing has truly shifted. It's a quiet suffering, not loud, not dramatic, but corrosive. You feel it in the dead of night when you lie awake, fully aware that something has to break and that something is you. Destruction isn't always chaos. Sometimes it's the clearest form of clarity, and when life quietly nudges, you, hinting that your current self is no longer enough, ignoring it is like choosing a slow, silent death. The version of you that clings to comfort, that negotiates, with fear that makes excuses, this version has to vanish, not adjusted, not improved, erased entirely. This is the core of Stoicism. Not decoration, not mere inspiration, but true transformation, irreversible change, the kind that doesn't seek approval or applause, the kind that requires stepping into the fire of your own weaknesses and refusing to emerge the same. Rebuilding yourself always begins with destruction. And understand this, most people won't understand why you've grown silent, why you've disappeared, why you no longer laugh at the same jokes or occupy the same spaces. Let them wonder. Let them call it arrogance, coldness, or ego. You're not here to be understood by the old world. You're here to become something the old world cannot define. Every past version of you is a shadow. Shadows only exist when you stand in the same light, move, shift, evolve, and the shadow no longer fits. That is the first undeniable sign of growth. Discomfort, distance, disconnection. It's not a sign you're lost, it's a sign you're moving. And no, it won't be easy. It's meant to hurt. When you strip away the layers you've built to survive, you expose what is real, and reality is often messy, unfinished, unpolished. But it is honest, and from honesty comes power. Stoicism teaches endurance, yes, but more than endurance, it teaches creation. You don't just survive hardship, you shape yourself through it. You become both the sculptor and the stone. You learn to remove everything false until only truth remains. And that truth, your truth, forms the foundation for a stronger, unshakable self. So if you're listening right now and sense that subtle pull, that quiet voice telling you that the person you've been is no longer enough, don't ignore it. Don't drown it in distractions or numbing habits. Pay attention. That is your call, not to make minor tweaks, but to burn the script entirely and rewrite your story. It doesn't matter who you were. What matters is what you're willing to destroy and what you have the courage to become. This isn't about revenge or proving anyone wrong. It's about silence, stillness, and reinvention, not for the world but for yourself. And it begins today. Burn the bridges to your past. There's a reason why ancient warriors burned their ships after reaching enemy shores. It wasn't for show, it was for clarity. One meaning only: there is no return. Only forward, only through. That is the mindset you must adopt toward your past, not to cling to it just in case, not to revisit it when life becomes hard, but to obliterate every bridge leading back to the version of yourself that accepted less than you deserved. Too many people desire growth without sacrifice. They claim they're ready for change, yet each night they peek back at the past, text the person they've outgrown, or indulge in habits that once felt familiar but are now toxic. Real transformation is ruthless. It tolerates no nostalgia, no excuses, no return policy. It demands you release everything that once made you feel safe but now keeps you small. The past isn't just memory, it is momentum. Every thought you replay, every pattern you fail to break, becomes gravity pulling you back into who you were. Stoicism reminds us we are not defined by our memories, we are defined by our decisions. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That includes how you carry your past. You can wear it as chains or leave it behind, as armor you've outgrown, Burning the bridge does not mean erasing what happened. It means refusing to allow it to dictate what happens next. It means stopping yourself mid-thought whenever you think, "This is just who I am," and challenging it with, "Who do I want to become?" Until you fully sever the emotional ties to your past self, every new version of you will be built on a fractured foundation. Transformation must be non-negotiable. That may require blocking numbers, walking away from people who've known you for years but never truly understood you, cutting ties with habits that once comforted you in survival mode but now sabotage your growth. It means deleting, purging, erasing, not out of anger or revenge but for renewal. Because if even a single thread remains connected to your old self, it will pull you back when the pressure rises, and it will rise. Change is rarely smooth. It is collapse and reconstruction. In the moments when you feel weakest, your mind will tempt you with old escapes disguised as comfort. The relationship you know you shouldn't revive. The substance you swore you were done with. The habits and patterns that numbed you and kept you safe but stuck. This is why the bridges must already be gone. There can be no retreat, only progress. People will say you've changed. Some may call you distant, cold, or harsh. But they're not speaking to the new you. They're mourning the version that was easier to manipulate. Let them. It's not your responsibility to drag everyone into your future. Some people were only meant to know the outdated version of you. That is their chapter. Your next chapter begins the moment you stop rewriting the last. There is a kind of freedom that comes only when the past no longer has access to you, not because it vanishes, but because you've built something stronger in its place. Once that freedom becomes your foundation, everything shifts, your standards rise, your habits sharpen, your boundaries become sacred. The version of you that once apologized for being too much or not enough disappears. You become someone who moves forward not in fear of what was lost, but in awe of what you are creating. Ask yourself honestly, which bridges are you still afraid to burn? What pieces of your old identity still hold a voice in your life? Are you finally ready to silence them, not with anger but with clarity? The fire you ignite behind you becomes the fire that forges the person you are meant to be. The power of walking alone is profound. Solitude is not loneliness, it is strength. Not the showy, attention-seeking power the world sells, but the kind that builds, quietly, without applause, when no one is watching, when your only audience is the mirror. Most people fear being alone because they've never truly met themselves. They surround themselves with noise, opinions, distractions, anything to avoid the quiet truth of their own mind. But it is in that silence, in that stillness, that real transformation begins. Walking alone means reclaiming your decisions. Your values are no longer dictated by approval. You don't dress for compliments, act for praise, or live for expectation. You build a life in alignment with your own code, even if no one else understands it. Because that is the true test. Are you willing to walk away from everything familiar to become someone you've never been? Society conditions us to believe that being surrounded equates to correctness, but crowds often gather around comfort, not conviction. They celebrate the easy, predictable path. When you begin to think differently, live differently, elevate yourself, don't be surprised when the crowd fades. They leave not because you failed them, but because you've outgrown them. That is precisely how it should be. There is sacred strength in realizing that each day you are responsible for your own momentum. No one is coming to save you. No one is obligated to understand your path. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus taught that we should wish for events to unfold as they do and use them as fuel for self-mastery. Walking alone teaches you this. You are never at the mercy of circumstance. Your mind is yours alone, inviolable unless you allow intrusion. When you walk alone, every step is intentional. Trends and expectations no longer pull you left or right. You learn to say no, not from anger but from self-respect. You guard your time because it matters. You stop explaining, stop asking for permission, and begin to trust your own voice over the noise of the... In doing so, you reclaim something invaluable, sovereignty over your life. But the path is not without pain. Doubt will creep in. Nights will feel unbearably silent. The absence of validation will feel like rejection. Many turn back here, but true growth is forged in these moments. When support is absent, you stand alone. Every belief tested, every insecurity exposed. Yet each step strengthens what can never be taken from you, self-reliance. Solitude forces confrontation, with weaknesses, ego, and flaws without distraction. That confrontation is the birthplace of discipline. There is no one else to blame, no perfect time to wait for. You face yourself raw and unfiltered. In this honesty, you either fall back into comfort or rise into clarity. Walking alone eliminates fear of being left behind. Solitude is not punishment, it is refinement. Master it, and you become someone who doesn't chase you. Attract. Validation is unnecessary. Your presence communicates it naturally. And the paradox, the right people enter your life, not because you needed them, but because you no longer do. Walking alone is privilege. It means you are strong enough to lead yourself, question everything, destroy illusions, and build convictions. You are no longer waiting to be chosen, liked, or saved. You have already chosen yourself. If you are walking alone right now, good, it means you are not following. You are not pretending. You are doing the inner work invisible to the world, yet everyone eventually feels its effects. Keep moving. The path may be quiet, but your future is listening. Solitude is not the absence of connection, it is the space where the most important connection is built, the one with yourself. It is where weakness and comfort are shed. Comfort is seductive, wrapping around you like a warm blanket on a cold morning. Soft, familiar, almost impossible to resist. But today's comfort often destroys tomorrow's potential. The Stoics recognized this with brutal clarity. The more you chase comfort, the more you weaken the very muscles, mental, emotional, and physical, that are necessary to endure life. Here's a truth most people refuse to face. If you don't consciously break free from comfort, it will quietly become your prison. Weakness doesn't announce itself. It creeps in slowly, masquerading as rest, as reward, as I deserve this. Gradually you stop pushing. You stop challenging yourself. You begin taking the easy route. You tell yourself, I'll do it tomorrow, just this once. And before you know it, that phrase defines you. You stop taking risks. You stop growing. You become a shadow of the person you once dreamed of being, not because you lacked ability, but because you surrendered to ease. Comfort breeds stagnation. Stagnation breeds decay. When life stops testing you, you stop evolving. Reflect on this every moment. That strengthened you, sharpened you, made you more aware, never came from ease. It came from challenge, from discomfort, from being pushed beyond what you believed you could endure. That is where true strength is born, not in pleasure but in pressure. The Stoics were not mere philosophers, they were mental warriors. Seneca wrote, "We must undergo rigorous training and not rush into what we are unprepared for." He understood that without intentional difficulty, the mind grows soft, the soul dulls, and the longer you avoid resistance, the more foreign, even minor challenges feel. That is why you must train yourself daily to resist the pull of comfort, not because pain is inherently noble, but because it reveals truth. Pain exposes where you are still weak, where work remains, where you are hiding from your own potential. And if you have the courage to lean into it rather than flee, you begin to rewrite your relationship with yourself. Breaking free from weakness begins with honesty. Radical, uncomfortable honesty. Ask yourself, where have I grown lazy? Where have I made excuses? Where have I chosen ease over necessity? And then, without ceremony, without waiting for the perfect moment, do the hard thing. Not because it feels good, but because it builds who you are meant to become. Maybe it's waking up earlier. Maybe it's having that conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's saying no to things you once agreed to just to please others. Maybe it's finally committing to the work you've postponed for too long. Whatever it is, face it. Don't wait to feel ready. You won't. The feeling comes after the action. Confidence is the reward, not the requirement. Weakness isn't incapacity, it's unwillingness, and willingness can be trained. Every time you choose effort over ease, you reinforce a new identity. You become someone who acts in alignment with discipline, not emotion. Over time, repetition builds internal strength, the kind that doesn't need to be seen, the kind that steadies you when everything else shakes. Comfort wants you to settle. Weakness wants you to conform. But deep down, you know you were never built for mediocrity. You were built to evolve. Evolution demands friction, resistance, and sacrifice. The cost of growth is discomfort. The cost of comfort is your life. Don't be the person a year from now who realizes they're still in the same place. Be the person who looks back and barely recognizes who they were because they had the courage to confront what was weak and replace it with what is solid. Take a moment and ask, in which areas of your life have you let comfort rule? What if, for the next 7 days, you chose the opposite of what feels easy? What could you build if you stopped avoiding resistance and started using it as fuel? The path to your strongest self begins the moment you stop negotiating with weakness and start choosing what makes you worthy of who you want to become. Your life is a reflection of your programming, not just the conscious choices you make, but the subconscious beliefs you've absorbed without noticing, the voices that shaped you as a child, the fears you never questioned, the limits you've accepted as just the way things are. All of it forms the invisible script running your life. Erase the old mindset, reprogram yourself, rewrite the script entirely, because nothing less will create the person you are destined to become. Here's a hard truth. If you don't consciously rewrite the script running in your mind, you'll spend your entire life performing someone else's story. Most people never realize how deep their conditioning runs. It shows in the way you speak to yourself when you fail. It shows in the dreams you quietly dismiss as too big. It shows in the way you flinch at disrespect but say nothing because that's what you've always done. These patterns didn't appear out of nowhere. They were learned, and what is learned can be unlearned. The Stoics understood that the mind is a tool, not a master. Epictetus said, it isn't events that disturb people, but their judgments about those events. And those judgments? They come from the programming you run every day, often without permission, often without awareness. Rebuilding yourself requires more than changing habits. It requires challenging the beliefs that created those habits. This isn't surface-level work, it's a war inside your own mind. Every time you try to think differently, the old program resists. It whispers to stay small, to stay safe. It tells you growth is dangerous, ambition is selfish, and discipline is too hard. And if you don't counter that voice with deliberate thought, it will quietly sabotage every step you take. Reprogramming begins with awareness. You must catch the thought as it happens. When you say, I'm just not that kind of person, stop. Ask why. Where did this belief come from? Was it a parent projecting fear? A failure you never processed? A comment someone made years ago that still echoes in your choices? Dig deep. Understanding the source strips the belief of its power. Then comes the replacement. Erasing alone isn't enough. Nature abhors a vacuum. Without installing a stronger belief, the old one returns. So you construct a new narrative, not a fantasy, but a clear, conscious identity rooted in who you are becoming. You don't say, I'm trying to be disciplined. You say, I am disciplined. You don't say, maybe I'll be confident one day. You say, I am building confidence. Through my actions, every day you reinforce that identity through repetition, through choices, through thought. It begins small, catching one self-limiting belief and replacing it. Then 2, then 5. Soon, routines form around those beliefs. You speak differently. You move differently. You stop tolerating things you once endured because the old mindset no longer feels like home. And that's how you know the shift is real. It won't happen overnight. You'll relapse. The old voice will return. That's expected. What changes is your awareness. In that moment, you reclaim your power. You say, no, that's not me anymore. Even if you slip, you don't stay there. The new program is stronger. Now, rooted, conscious, yours. One of the greatest lies you've been told is that identity is fixed, permanent. Stoicism teaches the opposite. You are malleable. Your reason, your judgment, your philosophy can evolve, must evolve, if you want true freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Your thoughts aren't harmless. They are transformative. They shape your soul. They build your future. So ask yourself, which thoughts are coloring your soul right now? Which beliefs are guiding your daily choices? And most importantly, are they truly yours or inherited from someone else? Until you confront the roots of your thinking, you will continue watering weeds and wonder why nothing strong grows. Rebuilding. Your life isn't about willpower alone. It's about changing the operating system that drives everything you do. That change begins the moment you stop running on default and start designing a mind that serves your highest self. Cutting off negative influences is part of this. Look around. Not everyone in your life wants to see you grow. Not everyone who smiles at you is a supporter. Some feel safer when you remain stuck, predictable, manageable. This is a hard truth many avoid. You are constantly influenced. The only question is by whom. Cutting off negative influences isn't cruelty, it's self-respect. It's protecting the space where your future is being built. No matter how strong your vision, if your environment is full of voices that mock, drain, or question it, you won't make progress. You'll spend energy defending your growth instead of pursuing it, and that is a losing battle. The Stoics understood environment's power. The mind must be trained daily but also shielded. You can't train for war while living in chaos. You can't seek wisdom while surrounding yourself with noise. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you. That's not advice, it's survival." People plant seeds in your mind, some courage, some doubt, and most never question what's growing until the garden is overrun with weeds. Often the most dangerous influence isn't a loud enemy but a close friend with a weak mindset. The one who encourages excuses, laughs when you try to change, or subtly pulls you back with comments like, "You've changed," or "Don't take life so seriously." That's not humor. That's fear disguised as concern. If you let it slide, you shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Cutting people off sounds harsh, but it needn't be dramatic. You don't owe speeches or explanations. You simply declare, "My energy is sacred. My time is limited. If your presence costs me my peace, focus, or self-worth, you no longer have access, period." This applies beyond people, to media, social feeds, shows, or distractions you use to avoid yourself. Everything entering your mind shapes your emotional climate. Are you feeding focus or fueling anxiety, elevating yourself or reinforcing old fears? One of the boldest acts in life is editing your circle intentionally, and when you cast enough votes for yourself, transformation becomes inevitable. Yet this is where most people fail. They design routines for their best days, not the real ones. They aim too high, stumble, and quit. But the Stoic doesn't chase perfection. They aim for resilience. They build something sustainable, something honest, something that holds even on your tired mornings, your distracted afternoons, your uninspired days. That's how progress is made. Not in bursts of effort, but in rhythm. Yes, life will try to disrupt you. People will demand your time. Emergencies will appear. But when your routine is grounded in clarity and aligned with purpose, you remain steady. You adapt without collapsing. That is the hallmark of an unbreakable system. It bends under pressure but never breaks. Take control. Audit your day. Treat it like it matters, because it does. No more vague intentions. No more "I'll see how I feel." Build a routine so entwined with your identity that missing it feels like betrayal. That's how you know you've locked in. Greatness isn't a single moment, it's a pattern. Your routine is the blueprint. Most people are slaves to their emotions. They react before thinking, speak before reflecting, act on impulse and call it authenticity. What they fail to see is that unchecked emotion is the fastest way to destroy your progress. One moment of anger, 1 hour of distraction, 1 day of laziness. That's enough to undo weeks, even months of steady growth. The Stoics understood this. Emotional control wasn't just a virtue, it was strength, a discipline of the mind separating the powerful from the powerless. We live in a culture that glorifies expression over restraint. Say how you feel, let it out, don't hold back. That's the constant message. But what they fail to mention is that unchecked emotion lies. It tricks you into burning bridges, abandoning goals, and surrendering to temporary moods with no place in long-term vision. Emotional control isn't suppression. It's awareness. It's noticing the emotion as it rises and refusing to let it dictate your actions. It's pausing before reacting, questioning impulses, stepping outside yourself just long enough to ask, will this move bring me closer to who I want to be or further away? The Stoics trained for this every day. They didn't wait for crises. They prepared their minds in advance. Marcus Aurelius journaled, observed, studied his emotions. He didn't deny them, but he refused to obey them blindly. That's the practice. To become so aware of your inner world that nothing surprises you. Not fear, not anger, not desire. You acknowledge it, then you decide. Self-discipline grows from this mindset. It isn't punishment. It's a promise, a commitment that your feelings won't sabotage your values. Feeling tired doesn't justify skipping responsibilities. Feeling offended doesn't justify lashing. Temporary pleasure doesn't mean it belongs in your life. Discipline is choosing what's right over what's easy, showing up when it's inconvenient, building habits aligned with your principles, not your moods. Moods change. Values don't. The hard truth? Mastering emotion and discipline happens in silence. No one sees the battles you fight. No one claps when you resist a destructive urge. No, one cheers when you choose restraint over impulse. But over time you feel the change. You stop overreacting. You stop seeking validation. You stop chasing instant gratification. You move differently. You think differently. You decide differently. That is control. It's quiet, solid, unshakable. The irony, the more you master your emotions, the freer you become. You stop fearing discomfort. You stop running from hard conversations. You stop avoiding failure. You start living on your own terms, not at the mercy of inner chaos. Reflect on this. How many times have you said things you regret in anger? How many goals have you delayed because you didn't feel like working? How many moments of weakness stole months of progress? These are not minor details. They are the foundation of who you become. These are the moments that determine the course of your life, and they are avoidable not by chance, but by conscious choice. The path forward is simple in concept, yet far from easy. You must learn to become the observer of your own mind. You must sit with discomfort long enough to understand it. You must craft rituals that anchor you, journaling, meditation, daily reflection, physical training, not because they are trendy, but because they create space between impulse and action. Above all, remember this: the strongest man is not the one who never feels, but the one who never allows feeling to govern him. So ask yourself, who is truly in control right now? Your discipline or your desire, your reason or your reaction, your future self or your fleeting mood? The man who masters his thoughts, emotions, and actions is unstoppable, not only in moments of strength, but especially in moments of weakness. There comes a time when improvement alone is insufficient, when adding a few habits, reading books, or tweaking routines no longer scratches the surface. What you're facing is not a behavioral problem, it's an identity crisis. You may have changed your schedule, your diet, your wardrobe, but underneath you're still operating from an outdated version of yourself. No matter how much you try to evolve, a self-image that hasn't been rebuilt will always drag you back into patterns that no longer fit. You cannot construct a new life atop an old self. You cannot become disciplined while secretly believing you're lazy. You cannot become confident while clinging to narratives of weakness. You cannot live with strength while still identifying as someone perpetually in progress. Reinvention isn't about polishing edges, it's about starting from the ground up. The Stoics didn't say become someone else, they said become yourself, the true self beneath layers of fear, guilt, conditioning, and false narratives. Marcus Aurelius didn't say pretend to be brave. He said, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. This means thinking in terms of essence, not effort. How do you begin? Strip everything away, every label you've accepted, every identity you've adopted to. Survive or conform. I'm bad with people. I've always had bad habits. I'm not a morning person. These are not facts. They're permissions you've granted. Yourself. Permissions that shape your choices, limit your actions, and dictate your reality. Start asking the hard questions. Who told me this is who I am? Where did I learn this limitation? What do I gain by holding on to this version of myself? And what would happen if I let it go? This process is uncomfortable. It demands killing parts of yourself that once felt like home, parts that may have protected you once but now sabotage you. Daily, self-pity, passive voice, subtle self-sabotage in procrastination, excuses, hesitation. These are not you. They are masks, and the mask has to come off. Reinvention is not becoming someone new. It's remembering who you truly are beneath the noise, doubt, and labels. It's about choosing with radical clarity the man you will be and aligning every thought, action, and decision with that version of yourself each day. Start deliberately. If the man you are becoming is focused, wake with focus. If he is calm, speak with calm. If he is powerful, walk with power. Even if it feels unnatural at first, repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity becomes identity. Stop negotiating with the old you. Stop checking in with the past to validate your future. The past is a reference, not a rule book. You owe it nothing but the courage to move on. Continuing to identify with your wounds, failures, and mistakes ensures you'll keep recreating them in new forms. Solitude is crucial in this process, not because others are harmful, but because their perception of you is frozen in time. They remember the version of you that joked too much, tried too hard, or gave too little. They do not see transformation, they see history. And if you aren't careful, you will keep performing the same role in a play you no longer wish to be in. Reinvent through solitude. Let silence teach you. Let daily action, not announcements, be proof of who you are becoming. You don't need to explain, just embody it. When your walk changes, your world changes. Reinvention requires ritual, morning routines, daily reflection, physical training, silent walks. These are not mere habits. They are instruments to chisel away the false self and reveal the core beneath. Once discovered, protect it, nourish it, and live by it. Ask yourself, are you still building your future from broken pieces of the past, or are you ready to burn the old blueprint and craft a new architecture from your values, vision, and truth? Identity is not fixed, it is forged. The fire you walk through now becomes the light guiding your way forward. There is a peace that comes only when you stop expecting the world to save you. No mentor, partner, friend, or even well-meaning ally can carry your burden for you. They can advise, support, and listen, but they cannot walk your path. This is the essence of self-reliance. It's not isolation. It's not arrogance. It's the quiet, unshakable strength that comes from knowing your foundation must be built with your own hands, or it will never endure. Most people don't want to hear this truth. They crave rescue. They chase shortcuts. They want someone else to understand them so deeply that they no longer have to understand themselves. But true growth doesn't work that way. True growth demands responsibility, brutal, uncompromising, radical responsibility, not just for your victories, but for your mistakes, your decisions, and the mindset you carry. Because the moment you outsource your power, you have already surrendered it. The Stoics made this clear. Epictetus taught that while we cannot control what happens to us, we always control how we respond. This isn't merely philosophy. It's a blueprint for independence. It means you don't need perfect circumstances to create a strong, meaningful life. You need discipline. You need clarity. And above all, you need the courage to depend on no one but yourself. Make no mistake, self-reliance isn't about pushing people away. It's about no longer requiring anyone to validate your existence. It's about being whole with, or without applause, company, or comfort. It's about learning to sit in silence and recognize that you are enough, not because you've arrived, but because you show up for yourself consistently every single day. This doesn't come naturally. We've been conditioned to lean on others for emotional security, motivation, and identity. We tie our worth to relationships, careers, achievements, all of which can vanish in an instant. And when that happens, most people crumble, not due to weakness, but because they never learned how to stand alone. This is why self-reliance is so potent. It is unshakable. It doesn't depend on external conditions. It is built on internal stability. You don't need luck or timing. You need to wake, plan, and execute, even when no one believes in you, even when no one witnesses your effort, even when results come slowly. That consistency, that inner flame, compounds over time. When you are truly self-reliant, you become immune to manipulation. You stop chasing approval. You stop shrinking to fit in. You no longer fear rejection because your worth isn't borrowed from anyone else. It belongs to you and only you. Yet here's what most people overlook. Self-reliance is a skill. It's not innate. It is built one decision at a time. Each promise you keep to yourself, each hard choice made unseen, each moment you choose discipline over distraction, these are the private victories that forge trust in yourself. You stop saying, "I hope I can do it," and you start saying, "I will figure it out." That shift from hoping to deciding is the birth of inner power. It's the point at which motivation becomes unnecessary because momentum is already in motion. And the beauty of this power? It's quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't flaunt itself. It doesn't demand recognition. It moves with intention, clarity, and purpose. And in time, others feel it. They sense it. They respect it, even if they can't fully explain why. So if right now you feel alone, good. That means you've stopped relying on weakness. That means you're standing at the edge of who you were and the person you are becoming. Don't retreat. Don't beg to be saved. Build from within, slowly, daily, relentlessly. Because when you master self-reliance, you don't just survive alone. You become someone others can depend on, not because you need to, but because you can. Pain is inevitable. It touches every life, every mind, every heart. But what separates the broken from the unbreakable isn't the amount of pain endured, it's what is done with it. Most people run. They numb it, hide it, distract themselves with pleasure, noise, or external validation. They seek to escape what they cannot avoid. But the Stoic does not run. The Stoic meets pain head-on and asks, "What are you here to teach me?" Because pain, when confronted directly, is never just suffering. It's a signal. It points to the places where the work still needs to be done. It exposes the parts of you that remain wounded, the attachments that still hold you, the weaknesses that linger beneath the surface. In this sense, pain is not an enemy. It is a guide. We've been conditioned to avoid discomfort at all costs, to view it as failure, as shameful, as something to flee from. But the Stoics turned that notion on its head. They understood that pain is integral to growth, not something to resist, but something to harness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is not a metaphor. It is instruction. The very obstacles you perceive as blocking you are the raw material from which your strength will be forged. Turning pain into power begins with surrender, but not to weakness. Surrender to truth. Stop pretending that everything is fine. Stop hiding your wounds behind distractions or numb routines. Admit it. Say, "This hurts. This situation has broken something in me." Then ask yourself, what now? Will I allow this to define me, or will I use it as the foundation to redesign myself? It doesn't matter if your pain comes from betrayal, loss, failure, or regret. What matters is how you carry it. Most people carry pain as a burden. It drags them down, compresses their posture, makes them bitter, suspicious, and fearful. The Stoic carries it differently, like armor, not to shield themselves from life, but to remember what they have endured, what they have survived, and what they are capable of withstanding. And survival is only the beginning. True transformation comes when you extract meaning from the struggle, when you say, because of this pain, I now understand who I am. I now know what I will no longer tolerate. I now know what I value, what I protect, and what I fight for. That is power. Power that isn't borrowed, power that isn't contingent on circumstance, power that is forged internally. Consider this. Some of the strongest, most grounded individuals you know didn't arrive at that place by accident. They were forged in fire. They endured humiliation, dismissal, abandonment. They lost people they loved. They lost dreams they cherished, and instead of breaking, they built. They constructed a mindset, a philosophy, a system. They converted heartbreak into hunger, sorrow into strength, silence into wisdom. You can do the same, but only if you stop negotiating with pain, only if you stop asking, why me, and begin asking, what now? Only if you sit with discomfort long enough to allow it to shape you. Most people quit too soon. They escape before the pain has completed its work. But if you endure it, not passively but deliberately with purpose, you emerge, sharper, clearer, wiser, hungrier. Pain also reveals truth. In times of ease, everyone applauds, everyone calls. But in pain, the masks fall away. You see who remains. You see which habits crumble under pressure and which beliefs endure. Pain strips away the non-essential. And though the process feels brutal, in the moment, it is a blessing. It provides a cleaner slate, deeper understanding, higher standards, and, most importantly, perspective. Once you have endured real pain and risen from it, the trivial no longer shakes you. You don't panic over failure. You don't chase validation. You don't fear discomfort. You have been there. You have survived worse. And now you walk with a quiet authority that is earned, not borrowed. So, if you are hurting right, now good, that means work awaits. That means power is within reach. Do not run, do not numb. Face it, own it, use it. Let it forge you into the person you were always meant to become. Don't hide. Go deeper. Feel it, learn from it, use it. Because pain, when fully owned, transforms into purpose. And purpose, when acted on consistently, becomes power. A kind of power no one can ever take from you. Developing a relentless work ethic. There's a sacredness in a man who shows up day after day. No excuses, no applause, no drama, just steady, focused, deliberate work. Not because he is chasing external rewards or fleeting recognition, but because he made a vow to himself, a vow to rise above mediocrity, to become something far greater than average. In a world addicted to comfort, shortcuts, and hacks, this kind of work ethic is rare, and rarity makes it immensely powerful. But understand this, work ethic isn't measured by hours alone. It's not about sacrificing rest for hustle or burning yourself out to impress others. True, relentless work ethic is deeper. It is quiet, internal, immovable. It is the conviction that the work must be done, whether you feel motivated or not. Because the life you want isn't going to build itself. The Stoics understood this long before it became a motivational catchphrase. They treated work as duty, as calling, as character-shaping discipline, not something to display on social media. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of an empire, carved time each morning for reflection, writing, and mental discipline. He didn't wait for motivation. He created systems, built structure, and above all, he showed up even when the world around him was crumbling. You need that level of discipline, not the kind that shines for a few weeks, but the kind that survives monotony, frustration, and setbacks. A relentless work ethic is forged in invisible moments, when the results are unseen, when no one notices the effort, when progress feels slow or non-existent, but you move anyway. You wake up tired, yet you show up. You don't feel inspired, yet you perform. You fail, yet you return stronger. Because work ethic is a choice, not a feeling. It is a decision to rise above excuses, to ignore distraction, and to align every action with your highest standard, not your fleeting moods. Most people never make that decision. They wait to feel ready. They wait to be in the zone. And that's why they stay stuck. The zone is not something you wait for. It is something you create by doing the work. Confidence is not born from affirmations or positive thinking. It is born from following through, from keeping your word to yourself, from knowing that when you commit, you act. Period. That is where self-respect grows. That is where identity transforms. That is how you move from a person who tries into someone who executes. Execution doesn't require perfection. You will stumble. You will fail. But the relentless worker doesn't chase flawless results. He seeks alignment. He seeks integrity. He asks himself each night, did I move forward today? Even if it was just an inch, he knows it matters, because compounding effort always outpaces sporadic bursts. Another truth, transformation rarely comes from giant leaps. Life-changing moves aren't required. The most powerful results emerge from relentless small steps, hour by hour, day by day, a routine that sharpens, not exhausts, a rhythm that sustains, not breaks. That is what makes work ethic unstoppable. It doesn't burn out, it builds up. And yes, some will never understand. They will call it obsession. They will tell you to relax, to chill. Let them sleep, let them scroll, let them waste years, chasing shortcuts. While they play, you build. And in 5 years the difference will be undeniable. Not just visible, but undeniable. Yet none of this matters if you do not claim it. If you do not take full ownership of your time, your habits, your craft, no one will push you. No one will check if you stayed disciplined today. This is a battle between you, and that is what makes it powerful. Ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped waiting to feel like it and committed to working no matter what? What would happen if you applied daily, purposeful pressure? Because the man who builds a relentless work ethic doesn't just achieve goals. He becomes the type of man who cannot be stopped. The kind of man whose mindset refuses to quit. The one who turns effort into habit, habit into identity, and identity into unstoppable momentum. There is a quiet fire burning within certain people. You might not always see it in their words or in their stance, yet it exists. You feel it in the way they show up, when everyone else walks away, in the way they push forward long after motivation has vanished. You see it in their refusal to quit, not because it's easy, but because they have made a commitment to themselves that is absolute. This is not optional. The mindset of those who never quit is not fueled by hype. It is not about being fearless. They feel fear. They feel doubt. They have moments when everything seems to collapse. But here is the crucial difference. They continue. They keep moving. They have trained themselves to interpret resistance not as a signal to stop, but as a signal that they are exactly where they need to be. Stoicism lays the foundation for this way of thinking. It teaches that life is never meant to be easy, and more importantly, that comfort is not the objective. The goal is resilience. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." This is not a poetic metaphor, it is a harsh truth. The people who never quit embrace difficulty as part of who they are. They do not avoid it, they wield it. And it all starts with a single choice, to stop expecting the road to be smooth. When struggle is anticipated, preparation becomes natural. When hardship arrives, panic does not. They lean in, they breathe through it. They understand that struggle is the price of growth. Most quit because they believed life should be easier. The unstoppable never fall for that lie. Yet grit alone is insufficient. What truly separates the people who never quit is clarity. They know what they are fighting for. They possess a reason that pulls them forward, even on the days they want to disappear. That reason is larger than comfort, larger than ego, larger than excuses. It might be freedom, redemption, proof to themselves that they are no longer the person they once were. Whatever it is, it anchors them. When the weight of life presses down, they do not drift. They root themselves. They stop bargaining with emotion. They stop chasing motivation. They rely on their standard, not on fleeting feelings. This is the Stoic mindset, to act not because the moment feels perfect, but because the action is necessary. Here is the harsh reality: sometimes results will not be visible, not for weeks, not for months, perhaps not for years. But those who never quit do not measure success by outcomes alone. They measure it by alignment, by the internal knowing that they are doing what must be done, regardless of recognition or praise. They are building not for applause, but for impact, quietly, relentlessly. Quitting is not always obvious. Sometimes it disguises itself as compromise, distraction, perfectionism, or endless preparation. The relentless see through these illusions. They recognize the moment their mind attempts to deceive them, and they respond with action. They do not wait to feel ready. They begin, and when they stumble, as they inevitably will, they do not remain down. They extract the lesson. They reset. They return, not with shame, but with sharpened resolve. For failure to them is just another rep, another brick, another lesson. They do not internalize it. They integrate it. The mindset of those who never quit is anchored in this conviction: I may not be the most talented, the fastest, or the smartest, but I will be the last one standing. And that belief becomes prophecy. Every day, they prove it to themselves through effort, through sacrifice, through choices made in silence when no one would have blamed them for quitting. So ask yourself, what is your threshold for quitting? Where do you usually stop? More importantly, what version of yourself is waiting beyond that limit? Because crossing that line once begins to redefine identity. You stop being the person who tries and become the person who finishes again and again. Recognition may be delayed, but one day the world will look at what you have built and call it discipline, strength, success. But you will know the truth. It is refusal, patience, grit, the quiet fire whispering, keep going. You do not rebuild by accident. You do not wake up transformed. It takes intention, sacrifice, silence, solitude, an unshakable commitment to becoming someone unseen by the world yet fully visible to yourself. That vision, your inner standard, is all you need. The old you served a purpose, but he is no longer invited to your future. The version that tolerated disrespect, delayed dreams, broke promises, and made excuses out of fear, he is done, not out of hatred, but because you have outgrown him. The next chapter does not need his survival, it requires your evolution. This is not about shortcuts or instant results. It is about reminding you of a deeper truth. Power emerges from destruction. Strength is born from walking alone. Transformation comes when you are brave enough to release people, patterns, thoughts, comforts, and every soft excuse that kept you safe but stagnant. Now you know, you have seen the possibilities when you burn the old identity and begin anew with ruthless clarity, not fear, not hesitation, but with the firm belief that everything you build from this moment will be stronger, cleaner, and more aligned than anything you have lived before. The choice is yours. Will you carry the weight of the man you used to be, or will you bury him and rise? Either way, your future is watching.